without any further ado, we're going to ask Miss Ruby. Miss Ruby, can you please give us a little bit of background of your campaign? How was it? You know, what was some of the things you learned, some of the things that you were disappointed about, and how that shaped the way you're looking at things now?
Yes, we're gonna put you on the spot to do your debriefing right now. you
Well,
have
no,
some time to process.
no problem. No problem. You know, I don't mind. You know, like I think that a lot of I'm sorry, a lot of people should run for office, you know, especially if you really want things to change. And, you know, running for office should not just be left to, you know, the status quo or people who were bred and fed to be in certain types of positions. It really takes guts to run for office. And it's totally something that we need to think about doing as people of color, because we already know last week we heard these words, stand back and stand by. So in hearing these words, it was a telling situation as to how people of color are on edge as to what's actually going on in, you know, the elections. We need to make sure that, and we say this all the time when it comes to, like, let's say the criminal justice system, and I'm really speaking because I have a lot of experience in the criminal justice system. But when it comes to the criminal justice system, we always say that the bench needs to look like, or the public defender's office or the state attorney's office needs to look like the people in which we are, you know, the community. And a majority of the people that are in the community are literally people of color that are being convicted and sentenced, you know, 3 times as much as their white counterparts, stuff like that. So it's really a situation where we are fighting for just fighting to be in a situation where we can have some sort of power or some sort of education as to what's going on in and as far as voting goes. When it comes to my election, of course, I would have loved to win, you know, but everybody doesn't win. And we always know that, you know, there's always going to come a time where we can go ahead and come back and run for office again. And, you know, things may be different. But I can say that as a Black woman running for office, it was hard. It was hard because of the fact that we literally had situations where, you know, people that don't look like us would tell us, you know, hey, you're too young to do this. Why don't you wait? You need to wait your turn, stuff like that. People of color, people who are older and of color would also say, you're too young, you need to wait your turn. And then someone who is a white person, or, you know, whatever words you want to terms you want to use, Caucasian, they would run for office and they could be 26 years old and they would say, oh, yay, congratulations, great for you. We think that this is the person that should win this.
You're showing initiative.
Right. Yep. Yeah, you're showing initiative. And so you're left wondering, like, how is that this person is younger than I am? How is this great that they're running for office, but it's not great for me to run for office? So, and you never really know how to feel in that situation. I mean, I know how I felt. I really felt at some points, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like defeated, like, oh my goodness, like what can I do to make someone feel differently about me when it comes to this situation? And so when I heard those words last week about stand back and stand by, I was like, oh my gosh, like literally are you telling people to be up in, you know, in arms about what's to happen? Be ready for what? Or is there going to be a war against Black people? Is there a war because you really don't want change in this country? And, you know, and I put it all together and I was like, yeah, like the people are afraid of change. People are afraid of, you know, of people of color. And it's sad. So, you know, that's all I can say about really what's going on in this country and, you know, how I literally felt running for office, being a woman of color, and how it really affects, you know, what other people of color also think about running for office, especially when the electoral college, a lot of people of color don't feel as if their votes count because of the fact that, let's say in 2016, everybody thought that, Hillary Clinton was going to win because she got the popular vote. She had more votes than Trump did. And then
they flipped the script and try to make sure that, they get who they wanted to get in, and, get it how they wanted. They felt like they needed to get in, and the other thing that I want to drive home too is that, running for office, like you stated, was not a, are you on mute? Okay, running for office was not a very easy thing. We both know that. We were running at the same time. But what's important too to know is that running for office as a person of color, I believe, is just if not more difficult, because this is a realm that they say that we couldn't be in, and it's not literally. I want people to put things in perspective. We're literally, and Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong, we're literally 50 years out of Jim Crow. And about 50 years?
Yeah, so no, it's more like maybe 60
years out of, and that's still not a lot. Okay, so we're literally 60 years, okay? And let's put things in perspective. 60 years ago, it wasn't prevalent for a person of color to kind of like be in the game of running. Well, not as much as we're running now. Let's just put it that way. And a woman. Right. So you just want to put things in perspective. So moving forward now, we have our nominated VP, the party nominated VP, a woman of color who is running. And
colors. She got island color, she got Asian color, she like representing
woman
all
of color. She's what did Tiger Woods call himself? He's what now? Blanasian. What did he say he was? Well, she's
Blasian. He was Blasian.
Oh, she's Blasian. Oh, okay.
Well, she's all of that encompassed and then some. She's that song "I'm Every Woman." That's what she is.
She's every woman, yes.
She's literally "I'm Every Woman." And the minute she was considered or chosen by the former vice president as his running mate, the occupant of the White House came out and basically diminished her and said that she wasn't fit to run and she wasn't able to run. And we see that with her, but we see it more prevalent with women who run for office. And if you're a woman of color, there's always opposition, right? From both sides, not just the party that you're running against. So with all of that, what was some of the lessons you learned, Ruby, as you move forward? And, do we see a future of you running again?
And I want to add one more piece to that, right? Because one of the things that I think 2016 taught us is sexism is also real, right? So there's that whole idea of race, but even within that, there's a lot of sexism, right? And I think women of color, when they're running, not only are you getting stuff or junk from others because you're a person of color, but maybe even you're also dealing with the fact that you're a woman too, and that tends to be problematic. So our next guest has joined us, but I'm gonna go ahead and have Ruby answer that question. I'm gonna have Mike Gelin, Commissioner of Tamarac, introduce himself. But let's let Ruby answer that question.
I want to know what, like, I think that we had so many wonderful women that were actually running to be president in this country. And it just baffles me that we couldn't have a woman as the front runner, running for office. But, that's another topic in and of itself.
Yeah.
But
part of that is because they're always looking for women to be perfect. Right? They're always looking for perfection with women. So the men can have like a little bit of junk and they get a pass for it. But, the women have, because each of those women, you can find something to say about them that might be problematic, that they have like a hurdle that they have to overcome. But like when women are running as candidate, it seems as though they're looking for perfection. Like you can't have any little junk on your resume that they can take you to task on.
Right. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Gelin. We are not man bashing. We promise you that. On a specific.
Like, what did I get into?
Never.
But most definitely, you definitely will see me in the future for something. I don't know and how long and for what, but keep your eyes on me for sure.
Yes.
Was there another question? You had another question. I feel
I
like
just we can always come back to that.
Yeah, let's get Commissioner Gelin in, because he actually has another event and he's gonna have to check out pretty soon. So we want him to introduce himself. We're talking about race and the races, and we just want to Nani, like Nani said, she wants to get your experience on how it is to be a candidate, how it is to be a commissioner, because you ran and you have the job. And are there new struggles and challenges that you face, once you're on the job, because people are like, I want to be commissioner. And then they come in like, they're going to do this, that, and the third. And then they get there and they be like, oh, damn, I got to kind of get the rest of the people to agree with me too, in order for this to happen. Right. So introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about your background. And we did mention that you were the person that called that cop out. I'm the one that they were giving a medal to.
We sure did.
And then he was great to somebody else, but not great to you. Right.
Here we go.
Let's
yes,
talk
we
about
want you
that.
to speak on it. We want you to, and Commissioner, can you please tell us how to pronounce your last name?
Okay, Gelin, you say Gelin?
It's Gelin. If you want to pronounce it in Creole, it's Gelin. So either way works.
So we were both right.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike Gelin, City Commissioner, City of Tamarac, been in office since November of 2018. And this was actually my third time trying to get into office. So the first time I tried to get into office, there was a commissioner who was removed from office. And so there was an appointment process and I tried to get appointed. And this was back in 2010. And Tamarac wasn't ready to embrace diversity in 2010. And so it was me and 7 other people. So 8 people in total went for the position. I was one of 2 finalists. The other finalist was the current mayor. And I knew I wasn't going to get picked. People told me I wasn't going to get picked. But I wanted to join the process anyway. But I knew they were not going to pick the first Black commissioner in that process, even though in my view and in a lot of people's view, I was clearly better. The process was biased because I was given tougher questions. She was given easy ball questions. And so it was really tough to overcome. So 4 years later, I decided to run for the District 2 Commission seat. But then unfortunately, there was another African-American in the race. And when you have 2 African-Americans in one particular race, it can split the vote. And so I decided I was going to lose that race just because of that factor. So instead, I jumped out of that race and ran for the city mayor race. So I kind of knew I was going to lose that race, but I wanted to learn what it was to run an election and go campaigning. And I figured even if I lost, I was going to gain experience and learn.
And
so
people
that's happening.
know your name. I don't mean to interrupt, but people also need to know your name too, right?
Absolutely.
So you want that name recognition, because sometimes they don't even know how you feel about certain issues. They're like, well, I know that name. I saw that name somewhere, or I heard that name before. So you also do it for that reason, because you need to get your name out there.
And to your point, when I ran in 2018, so when I lost in 2014, I lost like 60-30 or close to 60-40, but when I won the District 2 Commission seat, I won about 66 or 65-35. And when I went door to door again, people were like, yes, I remember you. I voted for you last time. So that experience of running in 2014 and losing helped me win the commission seat in 2018. Now, after I ran in 2014, about a year later, that's when I had that incident with that police officer. And I told him he was wrong for arresting me. He had no right to arrest me. And I told him at the time he was going to regret it. Never did I realize it would be publicly.
You publicly regret this.
End up regretting it.
And you were like on yahoo.com. I was like, wait, I know this guy. He's like on yahoo.com. Like the cover story.
It was unbelievable. It was in New York Times, Washington Post, all over social media. I was surprised that it went that far because the meeting was at 9. I left the commission meeting early because I had a work-related meeting to go to. And I was done. As far as I was concerned, I was done. And it wasn't until the next day that the whole blue community started to find out about it. And I was getting all this hate email, hate stuff. And then by Saturday, Sean King reached out to me and said, hey, we got your back, to support you. And then that's when Black media started to get involved and they were all behind me 100%. So it was
none like Black Twitter. None like Black Twitter.
That's right.
And I want to just ask, how was that balance between you being a commissioner and also being able to stick up for things that you believe in? Like, because I know it's kind of like a struggle considering the fact that, as a commissioner, you're going to have cops that you guys were giving awards to cops at that time. So right. How does that work with that balance?
So I view myself as not a politician, but as an elected official, elected by the people to represent the people. So if I try to be politically correct, then I wouldn't have done what I felt was right in that moment. And then, and there are challenges still. So for example, I tried to pass a resolution to denounce white supremacy. My city manager thought it was going to be easy. The city attorney thought it was going to be easy. I thought it was going to be easy, and it ended up not passing. No one wanted to touch it. They were afraid of it. And so there is that challenge of people still having a difficult time to embrace issues that impact the minority community. Yeah. For example, I also had a Cops and Community Forum after that incident, several months after that incident, and none of the white commissioners showed up. I invited the 3 of them, and none of them showed up.
Yeah, and I was there. It was a great event.
Can I do the Biden stare at this point?
Saying that, we have people in positions of power that are afraid to tackle the issues that impact one particular community that they represent also.
Yes. And I want to say something to what you were talking about, to the point. They're afraid of it. So I'm teaching, I'm not going to name I don't want to say the name of my school because this isn't about my school or anything like that. This is my, the thing that I do as a regular person, not as a professor. But I just have to say that in my classes, I teach a lot of criminal law stuff. And I was teaching, we're dealing about 4th Amendment and search and seizures and how officers can arrest and all of that stuff, right? And I'm like, and because of all of what's happening, mind you, two or 3 days ago, this guy was trying to break up a fight. The police comes on the scene. He ends up losing his life, right? I'm just like, are you kidding me? So again, that cop got on the scene, don't know what's happening from Adam. He just automatically assumed that, I guess, it's the black guy that's causing the trouble here, right? Then you have the stuff in Kenosha, and it's like, it's just nonstop. And so I was like, you know what? I cannot see me teaching 4th Amendment stuff because a lot of these students want to be law enforcement officers, and we don't address their bias, right?
That's right.
So you're teaching students about 4th Amendment, what they can do, what they can't do. They have a right to, do an investigatory stop, and you can go ask the person to voluntarily speak to you, and on and on and on, without having that person first figure out what their junk is, right? Like, why is it that you think that this person is suspicious? Because if they think you're acting suspiciously or you look suspicious, when I say they, I mean police officers, they could come into your space and start questioning you about stuff, right? But before you tell them how they can do that and that they have the right to do that, you need to figure out that their conscience is clear and they're really coming to you because they think you've done something, as opposed to like they saw the color of your skin and they're bringing in all of this stuff and they're coming into your face talking to you, right? So I was like, and so I'm like, they need to rewrite these books, because I was seriously like, there's no way I'm going to go and have a 4th Amendment conversation with no students that are going to be police officers that are going to have the right to carry guns before we have a conversation about implicit bias. I know that they're starting to do training when they're police officers. I listened to a judge panel a couple of days ago, and one of the judges like, oh yes, we're going to have this week-long training about implicit bias. I'm like, you already got the job, bruh. Like, this is not the time for them to be talking to you about this stuff. You already have the job. How important do you think it is for people to really, for that to be a component? Like, this is something that needs to be talked about far before people get these jobs with all of this power.
Yeah, it's key. And the key also is there has to be a penalty if you, so for example, when you take a new job, they make you sign a form that you understand the sexual harassment policy. So if you violate that policy, then you're going to get fired.
Exactly.
And so that's what I asked BSO. I said, okay, you're going to have this training. Everyone has to go through it. Now, what happens if they violate that training? The same penalty doesn't apply the way it does with the sexual harassment policy. So, I mean, how long is the training going to work? You're going to understand race relations for a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months, and then go back to your normal self. So it has to be a constant training. There has to be some real life scenarios. And then most importantly, there has to be more events where we bring cops and communities together to talk about the issues. So cops can talk about what they fear, even if they don't want to admit it. And then we talk to them about what we fear in terms of whenever we see them. And we think about all the lives that have been lost just over the last couple of years when we get stopped. I'm wondering if we're going to be next. Mm-hmm. And so they need to understand that so we can bring the barriers down that already exist.
Right. And you said something about it being like consistent, but I think what the point that I really think that I thought you were going to make was that if you violate the sexual harassment policy, you lose your job, right? So if you violate some sort of policy on race, if there's no consequence, you know, even if you want to do right, it's like they ain't gonna do nothing to me anyway. So why do I care? And then another thing, so I'm not gonna call the judge's name out. I'm not here to do that. But I also remember, like in that forum, they ended up that judge ended up getting disciplined because they did something in court. And his thing was like, he's like, I was tired, and so that's why I did it, and I apologized, right? I'm like, okay. So you get to be tired and do something, right? And when we're talking about young men of color in these over-policed communities, underemployed, all of this stuff, they tired too, they probably hungry too, they angry too, they lonely too.
And scared.
But you know, y'all don't take none of that's factored in when you're deciding to charge them, arrest them, send them to prison, throw their whole lives away, right? But you get to be tired and you like, you know, and it's okay. And we're supposed to be like, well, you know, he was tired, so that's why he did that, you know, that type of thing. So that's just, you know, yeah. I'm telling you, it's like, yeah. So we really need to pay attention to who we're putting in these positions, because they have positions of power, and the things that they do have a lot of, like, for real consequences.
Yeah, and we have to hold them accountable.
Absolutely. So last question, Commissioner, as a Black elected official in a city that you worked hard to get on to be on the commission to help out, looking forward and looking to the future as we you know, get closer and closer to our November 3rd election. How do you feel, first, how do you feel about the election? That's number one. We don't want to know who you're voting for, but how do you feel in terms of the environment that we're living in? And what are your hopes moving forward about African Americans running for office, and you know, and I'm not sure how you identify, but for the most part, African Americans do identify, at least 70% of them identify as Democrats. As that party that we most identify with, what do you think that should be going on within that party as far as the Black agenda goes?
So how do I feel about local elections or national elections?
Give me both. Give us both.
Elections are important. We want to encourage people to really participate in that process.
Absolutely. Down ballot candidates are the ones who make the everyday decisions for everyday life. So absolutely.
Yeah, so for local elections, I think, you know, we did well in terms of African Americans getting into positions of power and into positions that we traditionally have not gone into before. However, like the Sun Sentinel had a newspaper article about it in the days after the primaries, about how Blacks swept all these constitutional officers. But we have a hard time winning one-on-one races when it's Black versus white. We actually sneak into races. So you look at the sheriff's race, you look at the supervisor of elections race, there were races where there were so many candidates in there that the Black candidate only needed the Black vote to get in, with a sprinkle of everybody else. So I don't really look at it as a big sweeping, you know, thing that happened. We kind of snuck our way in the same way Andrew Gelin.
Totally agree with you. Yes. Totally agree.
In a big primary race. Nationally, I think African Americans have a big chance to make some noise with Jamie Harrison in South Carolina. Mike Espy in Mississippi has a good chance of winning. The Republican Lincoln Project is supporting him. So nationally, we have a chance to do something. Regarding the presidency, I think it's clear that most people know that Trump should not be in office. And the thing that I fear about that is he's got some of these races so wired up that if he ends up not winning, you know, we can have a dangerous situation here where some folks decide to take up arms and take action. So that's my fear regarding that. But I think for locally, the people, African Americans who were elected to power, need to make sure that they have an agenda for African Americans. From a national perspective, I think it's going to be very difficult because the Democratic Party has such a wide tent that they need to satisfy every little group. You got Hispanics, you got the gay community, you got African Americans. There's so many groups within that one party that it's hard for them to come up with an agenda for African Americans. But there is an organization, and they have put out an agenda, the Black Agenda 2.0, by Alicia Garza, one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter. I think it's one of the most comprehensive agenda platforms that are out there. It was adopted by another group called Our Black Party that I'm a part of. And, you know, we have an opportunity to move forward in a good direction with the right leadership, and locally we do have some bold leaderships in the positions of power. Now we have to hold them accountable. Everyone says vote, 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 vote. Okay, we voted. And at least locally, some people are in. Now, how are we going to hold them accountable? Are they going to increase their diversity spend? Are they going to have more diversity in the hiring practices? Are they going to hold police officers accountable for bad behavior? So now is our opportunity to hold them accountable beginning November 4th. Within the next 2 to 3 years afterwards, we need to be able to grade these folks and say, what have you done in the time period you've been in here? Do you deserve another 4 years, or do we need to send somebody else in your spot?
Yes, and I think with like and that's important too. And I think also with the local elections, I have participated in some endorsement process with a couple of groups that I belong to. And when I saw some of the candidates, because again, if I don't live in a city, it's like you don't necessarily know, like you know, you're not in that city, so you kind of don't necessarily know what's happening. And it was one of the cities, and I'm gonna say it, Pompano. There was some candidates that were coming for Pompano. But let me tell you, somebody need to run for some seats in Pompano, because I'm like, is this what Pompano's commission looks like? Right? Like, you know, I mean, it's particularly since I mean, the type of work that I do, you know, I have a lot of clients that come out of there, and you know, I'm like, it's one of those communities that's also like very over policed. It has a lot of potential. They're doing like a lot of gentrification stuff going on there. But I'm like, they need somebody with some leadership, you know, somebody of color on that commission, right? I mean, you're familiar with the city, right, Ruby? And I think that there is maybe one woman there, but
born and raised.
Yeah, so it's one woman there, but I really think like we also need to also find people in those communities that can really represent the population that's there, right? Because there's a lot of people of color that live in Pompano, and it's one person, but I think that commission should be at least like half and half, right? And one of the things that I know Ruby talked about was that how people are afraid that they have to give up their space, right? But give up their seat in order for someone else to come in. But the thing is, like, you're not contributing anything, right? Like, you shouldn't get to just sit there because the space is available. If you're not doing what the people need, you really shouldn't be there, and you should actually be okay. And because you're not on that seat, that doesn't mean that you're not going to never have no job. You're not going to be able to support your family. You're not going to be able to do anything. They're not putting you away and put you in a position where you can't do anything. You just don't need to be right here, right? You just don't need to be because there needs to be some diversity, and that's an experience, that's in race, that's in gender, that's in all of that, right? Like, there's no way the makeup of Pompano should look the way it looked. I'm just saying, Ruby, I know you love your city. I don't know what are your thoughts on that, since you're from Pompano, born and raised.
And Ruby, before you answer that part, I just want Commissioner Gelin to just respond to a question we had in the chat. One person stated they do not agree with you about the sneaking in of the school sweep in Broward County. Can you please clarify that just a little bit? Because the response was, we are a blue county. Have you seen the school board? There's no snuck in that many of us won. That downplays the power of the Black community in Broward. Can you kind of explain why you feel that it was, and that question is from Carla Cody.
Okay.
And just give her some clarifications on what you meant by that, because I know you have to go, and I just really wanted you to respond to her question.
Yeah, so when you look at many of the elections, including the race for sheriff, the race for the Broward Supervisor of Elections, you had multiple candidates in there, right? And let's look at the supervisor elections, where you had Chad Klitzman and you had Joe Scott and several other candidates. If the race was just between, and Joe Scott and Chad were the top two vote getters, if the race was between just those two, I believe Chad would have won. He got endorsed by the Sun Sentinel, even though I disagree with that endorsement. 26 years old, very little experience compared to a military veteran, a lot of experience. But for some reason, in this county, whenever you have an election where there's, most times, not all the time, most times when there's a white individual against a Black individual, the white individual will not only get the endorsement, but will likely win the race. And we're going to see a test of that with the race for judge between Mr. Bailey and George Odom. George Odom made it to the top two in the race in the primary, but now it's one-on-one. And so he's going to get a good portion of the Black vote. Is he going to get enough of the white vote and the Hispanic vote to win that judgeship?
And you would think too, because that judge already has a record to stand, you know, because that judge is an incumbent and he has a record. And, you know, that record is like, you know, if they know what I know.
Yes. And another way,
you know, I can't like straight out come and endorse somebody, but I'm telling you, like, they need to pay attention to that record and think twice about the decision that they're gonna make. Because that judge was actually on a forum with the League of Women Voters, and you can go on that, you can go and watch that video. And he was talking about, he was quoting Judge Scalia from the Supreme Court. He was saying something like, "This is not your father's courthouse," right? Yeah. Like, what that mean, right? So he was like, "This is not your father's courthouse. Now we have to be able to like know about the LGBT." He didn't even say it right. He just said some letters and that type of stuff. So you need to really think about that, because people are trying to be able to.
Sorry, but not everybody cares about that though. Not everybody is gonna sit up there and actually be an educated voter so that they can, you know who they need to be voting for and know what the issues that people are actually having.
Right. So I mean, that's why we do this. And so we try to get the word out so people will know. But I'm just telling you where you can go and look. It's go and check that out, because that's a nonpartisan organization. You could see what he said, and then you can make your decisions based on that. But you know, when you're talking about you quoting Scalia and talking about this not your father's courthouse, you know.
But like if you go to that Jack Clissman race and you total the votes of all the white folks compared with outnumber the votes, so that's a big portion. He snuck in that race. If you add the total of all the other candidates compared to his, and if he went one-on-one against another white candidate, he would have lost the election. And that's what happened in the governor's race. It's just him and Governor DeSantis one-on-one. And even though we claim to be a purple state, when it comes to the governor's election, we are a red state. The majority of Florida is red. It's only South Florida that's really the blue portion of the state. The rest of the state is red. And so that's why we can't win the governor's race.
I have to shout out Alachua County, because that's where the University of Florida is, and Alachua County is blue.
Okay.
Another Biden's there.
So you have to run to go to an actual physical meeting.
Yes. We appreciate your time so very much. We hope that you will come back soon and do another one with us, just for like a wrap up, and look out for the vice president debate tonight.
Okay.
And we thank you so much. And we listen, keep on doing your thing. We want you to see you be mayor, not commissioner next time. So we're looking for that.
All right.
Thank you so much. You have our support.
All right, thank you.
But we want you to try that resolution again.
Yes.
Most certainly.
We want you to keep pushing.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So listen, Miss Cody is still not happy with the black sneaking in part. And I understand where she's coming from, but I do understand where Commissioner Gelin was coming from as well. Maybe sneaking in wasn't a good term to use. However, when you're looking at races on one-on-one, we do have the numbers, Carla, but the problem is that we may have the numbers, but they don't come out as much as, because I think she used an example about the Hispanics in Dade County. They come out in droves. They are unified. That group comes out and they show out. And in some parts of Florida, in some parts of South Florida, and some parts of Broward, we do have Black people to come out and show out, but we don't have enough of them making an effort to be out there and to really show the support that we need. And I'm just saying that based off experience I had when we were at early voting sites. Ruby can attest to that. A lot of Hispanics came out. We had Black people, but the Hispanics it was always 3-1, 5-1 sometimes when they came out to vote. I'm just telling you based off my experience. And we were at early voting sites from the minute they opened until the time that they closed. And we went through that cycle. But if you have any like extra stuff you want to mention, Carla, let us know. I see she's on there making her comments.
But I think, everything is never one, it's never one reason, right? Like usually, it's always like a couple different things. Just like, when, games are lost, like, if you're a sports person and someone loses a game, it's never one reason. You could always find like a couple different things that happen that cause someone to lose the race. So, I mean, yes, if it was maybe one-on-one with Chad, but remember, there was another person of color in that SOE's race, right? So, you could say like, well, that person took some votes away from like Joe Scott that might have gone to him or whatever, right? So it was like, it was a lot of people in that race. And there were some people in that race that voted for maybe voted for one of the other candidates that might have went ahead and voted for Joe Scott. And then Ruby made a very fair point about people don't go and find out about particular candidates when they vote, right? So people might have went ahead and voted for Joe Scott because Joe Scott just sounds like a regular name, right? Like you don't know who that person is. You don't know what that person looks like. So if a person who isn't informed about what the issues are, if they saw that name, Joe Scott, they don't know if that person's black, white, whatever. So he may have been able to get a lot of votes that were not from people of color, just from the name alone. So it's usually a lot of layers to that. So I can see why Carla may take some issue. And we don't mean to be talking about you the whole time, Carla. I'm sorry.
Plus he won too, so it could have been the opposite. It could have been the opposite too, because they could have said that because of the amount of people that were in the race, some of the people who are not of color took away from Chad, and that's how Joe was able to win, because there was only one other black person that was in that race. So there were more people who are not of color in that race who they could say took away from Chad, and that's why he didn't win. So the opposite could have been true for that particular race as well. But we do need to understand that for people of color, we often have to organize and get ourselves together in order to be able to, get out there and go vote. And Nikki is right. We didn't see a lot of people of color who were out there ready and willing to vote. We just didn't. I can tell you that I'm a part of the Florida Voters Mobilization Project, and we go and canvass in neighborhoods of color because we know that we need to galvanize and make sure people of color get out there and vote, because we already know that people, are of the sentiments that our votes don't count. And we need to make sure that we talk to each other and let them know why it does count and how we can change the system. I know the electoral college is one thing, but when it comes to local elections, that matters.
That matters. And that's why it's so important that Sandra and I really were discussing the flipping of these seats. And Sandra's going to go and give us a little breakdown of the seats that we're talking about and those that we really need to support and put our support behind. I think Sandra put in the chat a page that you can go and donate to help these candidates. But the point is, when we come out in numbers and then we come out in droves, there is no possibility for the other party to steal the election. And when I say steal the election, when you don't vote and you vote or you vote third party, that's them taking all that votes. That plain and simple. When you don't vote, if you're gonna come out, you got to come out. And this is not about the two of the lesser evil either anymore. I know that I know Ruby and I have conversations about that too. And there's, we're not in total agreement. However, it's not about. I told Sandra to say this is not about politics anymore. This is about our lives, period, point blank. And at the end of the day, we've had almost 4 years of an administration that completely disregarded human life, completely. And to add insult to injury, you have a president that contracted the disease and then comes back out of the hospital and says that they're not going to do any negotiations on a stimulus package. You don't know how much of a disadvantage that has put millions and millions of people in this country who are banking on it and looking for the government to come in and give them some relief. And for him to do that in the midst of an election year, number one, in the midst of a pandemic, number two, and people who haven't paid their rent, who haven't paid their light bill, who this state is Florida, forget about it with this unemployment. There's people who still haven't received their unemployment checks. And we're talking about since February and March. And so it's important that this is not about politics anymore. This is about livelihood, period. And it's important that we come out and we vote. People, don't take your vote for granted. Don't say that your vote doesn't make a difference, but clearly it does. Sandra, tell us about the seats that are potential in terms of flipping, and tell us about the candidates we need to support now who are running, and that needs our support financially, needs our support physically. If we can go out and campaign for them, pass out flyers, help them during early voting. Who do we have?
Okay, so we have a Senate seat, Javier Fernandez, he's running for Senate. There's another seat, Patricia Sigmund. She's actually out of the Tampa area, but if we can, we only need to flip 3 seats in the Senate in order for the Senate to be blue, right? So we need folks to vote.
What was that? 3 seats.
And we can flip
3 seats.
The Florida State Senate blue. Javier Fernandez, Patricia Sigmund, and I have to check the name of the third person, and I'll put it in the chat, or like when we meet next week, I'll definitely have the name of the third person that we can support. But we just need the people to keep their seats, and we just have to flip 3. And so but for the other thing that we need to have happen is there's a couple concerns that we have in the House races, right? One of the things, the thing that we at least need to do is to make sure that the Republicans don't have a supermajority. Because if they do, what's going to happen is, like, whatever they want to do, they're going to ram it through, and there's going to be no say-so, right? So we at least need enough people in order for them to not be a supermajority. But we also have the ability to flip the House also. And there's a couple different PACs that are assisting these candidates. I put in the information for Victory Now. So if you could donate $25, $10, $5, please donate to Victory Now. And then there's another PAC called House Victory, and I'll get their information too, that if you want to donate, they're also working with candidates throughout the state to flip the House blue. So you can donate to Victory Now. Their link is there. There's another PAC that's called House Victory. If you look it up, you'll find them, and you'll be able to donate to those PACs. If you want to donate to the candidates individually, so Cindy Polo, she's from House District 103. She won in 2018. We need her to keep her seat. We have Jean Pierre Bato. He goes by JP Bato. He's actually in House District 104. So it's a seat that we need to keep. But Javier Fernandez had that seat before, and he's running for Senate. So we need to keep that seat blue. That's House District 104. Then we have Dolores Hogan Johnson. That's in House District 84. We also need to keep her seat. Linda Thompson Gonzalez is out of Broward. She's in House District 93. We also need to get her elected. Then we have Geraldine Thompson, which is in House District 44. We need to, donate $5, $10, $25. All of it adds up. All of it counts. All of it matters. And then we have Joy Goff Marcial. She's in House District 30. Okay, these are all candidates that need money. $5, $10, $25. Please take some time and donate some money to their campaign, or at least contact them. And you can volunteer to call people, text people, something like that. But they need your support. Then we also have Annette Colasso. She's in House District 110. She's in House District 110, Annette Colasso. And then we have Dolores Guzman. She's in House District 27. So those are, and there's a few more that we can flip, but these are the ones that we really, really need you guys to make sure we get those seats. And they need money, $5, $10, $25, whatever it is that you have. Do it. If you want to donate more, like $250, $500, you can, or if you want to donate to all of these candidates and you don't want to have to do 10 different transactions, you can go to Victory Now. That's the link that's in the chat, or you can look up House Victory. That's another PAC. You can donate the money to them, and they'll make sure each of those candidates have the money in order for them to flip blue. And one of the things the thing that made us really want to do this, right? It was the Breonna Taylor's decision, and then a couple of days later, the governor of the state of Florida decided that he wants to try to push some legislation next session that's going to make it a felony to protest, right? To exercise your First Amendment right. He wants to make that a felony. And there's also part of that legislation that says that if a car drives into a group of protesters, like, they might be okay, like they won't be charged for that. So, a lot of times you don't want to let these things happen, right? We want to stop them from happening. And a way to stop that from happening is flipping both the House and the Senate of Florida blue. So you have people that are like-minded that would not allow this kind of legislation, because the governor wants to do it. He doesn't have the power to do it himself, right? So he's going to need the legislators to push through ridiculous legislation like this that's violating people's constitutional rights and also putting people's lives in danger. And it's always better, like I always like to quote the Jamaican person who told me this, don't ask me their name, but their thing is always like, prevention is better than cure. Okay, so prevention is better than cure, and that's what we need to do. We need to prevent this from happening, as opposed to like once it's happened, we're trying to figure out how we're going to deal with it.
Right. And then the legislation doesn't just stop there. It also forces the local authorities to enforce it. Like, for instance, now Ruby's working at the district attorney's office, and they're basically saying in that legislation, they have to go ahead and prosecute people like that. And one of the questions that we were trying to see if we can find that information out is, when whoever takes over as the state attorney, are you going to really prosecute people who are out there protesting? And basically you can't say no. And so that's one of the things that is part of that legislation, and why it's important that we vote. Ruby, you were going to say something?
No, I was agreeing. Like, you can't say no. The law is the law is the law. Whatever the law is, we are, to follow the law. And, obviously anything that I say here, is not incumbent of my position as a state attorney or whatever. But yeah, whatever, we have to follow the law. You can't say no, you can't prosecute or something like that just because your morals tell you can't. Obviously there are other ways that you can, go about the situation, but the law is the law.
Right.
And that's one of the things you saw. I didn't mean, sorry, Nani. That's one of the things you saw with former, well, she's still in office, but she decided not to run for re-election, was Ayanna in Orlando. She was the state attorney in Orlando, and she decided that she didn't want to prosecute any death penalty cases. And the governor was like, you don't want to do what? And so what did he do? He appointed I guess a special prosecutor, somebody else, to seek the death penalty in certain cases. And she just decided she wasn't going to run again, because that was something that she just didn't want to do. But they did, there was a sister, Worrell, who won the primaries for that position. She's a member of Gator Nation.
Plug.
University of Florida College of Law representing.
But you know what? It's really important that we do kind of focus on that, and these are the type of legislations. And I have to tell you, Ruby, I don't know if I got to tell you, but some people honestly thought that legislation was already in play. Like, they had no idea that this was a proposed legislation, and they were just, praising the governor for a great legislation to pass, and that hadn't even made it to the floor yet. That was just a proposal. And so look at how he made a complete whole press conference in Polk County, by the way, to put in a proposed legislation, nothing that's been out there, nothing. And he had, who did he have, Sandra? He had the president of the Senate there.
The president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House, right? Like, it was all official.
Like it was law.
Right. And so this is the type of stuff we're dealing with, and that's why it's so important that we flip these seats, and we maintain these seats.
And he had a sheriff there. He had the sheriff of Polk County there with him, so he had everybody.
And that's another thing that I want to say. I honestly can tell you that without Sandra and without Nikki, I would not have been able to get through my campaign. I know I was leaning on everybody, like, oh my goodness, today was a bad day. You need someone to talk to. So one thing that you guys are talking about is a level of support that he has. We need to show that for each other when we're running for office, when we're running for these positions. That's how he's getting the job done. That's how he's making the laws and passing the bills that he can pass, because of the fact that he has the support. And we need to do the same
enablers. Thing. We're not going to call them supporters. We're going to call them enablers.
Well, want to know what? When I say support, it's because of the fact that they have a different opinion as to what things should be. So, we just because we believe that it should be a different way, they believe that it should be obviously a certain way as well. But it's support.
We gonna flip the narrative like they be flipping the narrative. He got enablers. And you are completely and utterly right.
Side of this thing.
You're absolutely right. So listen, before we wrap up, we're at our 6:31 time frame. I just want to make sure everybody knows that the census was extended. It was extended to October 31st, right, Sandra?
Yes.
And we want you to go ahead and fill out your census. It's like 7 or 10 questions. Each question is a minute. Please, 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 we need much needed funds, especially going through this pandemic. We cannot afford not to do this census. And for my Caribbean people and my people who don't have their papers all straight, don't be afraid to fill out the census, because this census will not affect you in any way possible. These information it's not open to the public. It's just only
immigration.
Right. You won't. And Sandra knows, she's an immigration attorney. This will not help. This will not harm you in any way, shape, or form. So please fill out your census. It's really important. What is that? That website is
2020census.gov.
2020census.gov. Okay. And make sure you fill that out. Remember, we have to flip these seats. We have 3. Sandra told us about 2 names. Next week, we'll have the 3rd and final name, and we'll make sure that we repeat it again. Please look at the chat for donations towards these campaigns. Ruby, thank you so much for coming, talking, being free about what's going on. Hoping that we see you in 2 to 4 years running again. Close us out. Tell us what you want to leave with the people.
We got to talk about voting first. You got to tell people when to vote, how to vote.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm telling you how to vote, and I'm not telling you to. Okay, you go ahead. Tell us about what we're
close out with anyway.
That's what you're closing out with, Ruby?
Well, I mean, you guys could say it. This is your show. I'm just a pea in a pond right now.
Listen, if anybody know how important it is for people to vote, you know how important it is for people to vote.
Absolutely.
Right? Let's go ahead and tell the people.
All right. So listen, early voting starts October 19th. Early voting. I think they extended the registration because we had a glitch in the system.
That was till yesterday, but that
was yesterday. Okay, but if you haven't done that, listen, we've been pushing this for the longest. So early voting is October 19th. Mail-in ballots have been sent out. Everybody's been reaching. I got mine. Everybody's been getting theirs. Please do not mail after October 14th, right, Sanj?
17, they said.
17th, okay.
14 too.
I'm saying the 14th. Do not mail out your mail-in ballots after the 14th. If you have gotten it and it's after the 14th, please, please, please bring it to an early voting site and drop it off. Okay, they're gonna check your what they call it again, your signature. Send that off then. We don't want to take any chances. We know how it is and how they're playing, so don't take any chances. So October 19th is early voting. October 19th to November 1st is for early voting. And then obviously we don't do any voting on the 2nd, but we do 2nd or the 3rd. 3rd is the day.
Yes.
Okay.
The last day we want you to vote. We want you to vote ahead of time.
Get it all through.
And then make sure your signature is good. Make sure you put your phone number and your email address on there just in case it's not good, so they can contact you to allow you to cure this before, but if not, early voting, go early vote, please.
Listen, let me tell you, somebody posted on Facebook about Florida and Texas having most of their votes in because, there's a lot of people do their mailing and do the early voting, and that could be a game changer the night of election night. So listen, it's really, really important that we early vote. Go bring a friend, go to your neighbor's house, drag them and go in there, ask them what time they're going. Y'all go together, but bring as many people as you can to early vote. The earlier you can do it, the better it is for you. And I want to just send out
wear your mask.
Yeah. Do not wear your mask. Wear your mask, please. Okay. Just wear it. You don't have to wear it in your car, but just wear it when you're going out. Listen, I'm telling you, this COVID ain't no joke, right? This Rona don't play. As you can see, don't be letting people don't let 45 get you in trouble. I'm serious. Wear your mask. Listen. Wear your mask, okay? Honorable mention, Jeff Honus, running for school board of Broward County, seat 9 at large seat. If you don't know him, go on his Facebook page, go on his website, jeffhonus.com, and look him up. real cool cat. Vote for him. And Ruby.
Oh, we're gonna shout out Harold Pryor, State Attorney. Hi.
Harold Pryor, State Attorney. We're gonna shout out Scott, Joe Scott, Supervisor of Election. We're gonna shout out who else? That's it.
And of course, like Biden-Harris ticket.
Right, Biden-Harris ticket. Well, you know that's a given. But that's what we're doing.
With the amendments, vote. Only one to vote yes for is Amendment 2. Vote no for all the other ones.
Everything else is no.
Everything else is a trick.
That's a no. That's a no.
Amendment 2 is about.
Ruby's on the League of Women Voters. She know. Everything else is no. Guard.
Oh, Mr. Van just put him in the debate tonight.
Huh?
Woo!
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't forget listen. Kamala's gonna eat somebody food. That's how that Jamaican people say it.
Oh, she got that Scotch bonnet pepper in her spice, and her heat is hot. It's spicy hot.
She gonna pick up the momentum that Biden has. She's gonna pick that up a little bit. We're hoping that's what she's gonna do tonight. So don't forget, is that tonight at 9 o'clock. And Sandra, before I let you finish up, because I'm gonna let you round us out.
Where we gonna close us out? Because we talked about voting, we talked about sentence. I shouted out the people I want to shout out. If you want to donate money to a PAC, Victory Now and House Victory, those are 2 PACs that we're like pushing for people. If you don't want to donate to 10 different candidates, send the money there. Support those candidates. Call them. Volunteer your time, because this is a perfect opportunity for us to flip this state blue, and we need to do it. We need to do it because we've given these other individuals a whole bunch of time to recognize what it is that we need. And I'm not only talking about people of color, I'm talking about women, I'm talking about poor people, I'm talking about people that need health insurance, I'm talking about all of that, right? Like, we've given them an opportunity to do the right thing, and they failed us every time, and we don't need to give them any more time.
Absolutely. Listen, we need diversity on every spectrum of government. That includes our commission seats, our school board, Jeff Holness, our mayors, all of that. Why? Because Broward County is a majority county. Please don't forget that. And it's important that we make sure that the people who are there to serve us represents the community, and they look like the community. So we said to vote. We told you about the census. We told you about the seats that we need to flip. We told you about keeping the seats blue. We told you about who we want to do, what shout outs we have. Now, Ruby, you want to wrap us up, babe? Wrap us up.
Well, so thank everyone for attending Race in the Races this evening. It has been an amazing discussion. I just want to say, when it comes to voting, let's not knock people either from registering to vote. Let's still register to vote, because I can tell you during this election cycle, there are still people that need to be registered. There are people who are registered for nonpartisans who actually meant to be a registered Democrat. Oh, please, let's continue to register. And yes, it will prevent you, if you register at this point, it will prevent you from voting, however you want to vote for this particular election. But the next go around, you'll be able to do whatever it is that you want to do if you're voting for, remember, just like Florida is a closed primary state. So when it really, really matters when it comes to the primaries, especially, and you'll get to vote however you want to vote during that time.
And the midterm elections are important too. Those midterm elections, very important.
And I want to say one other thing too. So I live in the city of Miramar, and we have our election March 9th, 2021. So you still need to register. So if you live in the city of Miramar, and I think it's a lot of other cities that have like elections on off times, right? Whatever, it's not during the typical general election. So you still need to register to vote so you can participate in that process. I spoke to a candidate, Carrie Ann Nesbitt. She's running for one of the commission seats in Miramar, and that election is March 9th, 2021. So please still register.
I know her.
Registration. Huh?
I met her. I know her.
Yes.
So a long time ago at a women's event.
Yes. So she's running for a seat.
But our lives depend on it. That's the main focus. Our lives depend on it. Get out there and vote. Just like Nikki said, bring a friend. It is so important that we don't just keep the goodness to ourselves, that we also bring other people along. It's like, reaching back and helping another, learn this process, because we need to become educated voters, and we need to know what's going on. We need to have a helping hand as to what and how our communities look like and what's actually going on in our communities. So till next time, folks.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Ladies.
All right. So next week we'll be back again. Me, Sandra, we have Gracia who's confirmed, and we're going to get one more person to talk next week. But we're excited. Listen, how many more days we have? Like less than 20?
Yeah, it's probably 27 now, like 27 more days, something like that.
27 more days. Listen, the time is flying by. We were just saying today was Wednesday. Oh my gosh. So listen, let's put out our positive energies towards Kamala tonight. Let's put out our positive energies that we will have a change, and let's look forward to something great. You know what I mean? Ruby, we want to thank you again for coming. We love you. Sandra. And Carla, giving Carla a shout out. Carla, girl, thank you for the questions. I don't like keep calling your name, but you had some.
Wait, she might need to be the special guest next week.
You know what? We may have to add her. We may have to add. You might have to call her and ask her, Sandra, because I like Carla. I like Carla B. You know, like listen, okay. That what is it called? That positive dissonance. I like that. I mean, like, you know, we got to do stuff like that. We have to push each other. It's important. It's important that we don't have to agree all the time. But as long as our disagreements are, you know, something that pushes further and that makes us get to a goal, I think it's good to do that. So I'm excited. All right. So good night, everybody. I gotta go feed my babies and feed my husband.
Bye-bye.
See y'all. Drink, you know, I'm gonna have a drink with me tonight. Remember, 9 o'clock, we're gonna be texting each other anyway. So we'll see how that goes.
All right.
All right, good night. Bye.
Vote blue. Vote blue.
Vote blue, no matter who. Ruby don't like that. Ruby don't like that, but I'm gonna say it. Vote blue, no matter who. All right, good night. All right.
Educated voters.
Bye-bye.
Bye.